Chapter 25. Haruko. The bandage around Jiro's head attracted keen attention from everybody at the village school. It was not regarded as a mark of defeat, but that of courage. It worked to recover his fame as a brave boy, which had been waning these days. On his way to school and back, even senior boys flattered him to gain his favor. Yoshio and his group were always in an uneasy mood and avoided him as much as possible. Jiro, however, was quite indifferent to them. He looked even sullen. Sometimes he seemed to be lost in thought, which made them all the more afraid of him. Many people said that he might have lost his life if he had been hit somewhere else, but he was not afraid of death at all. He sometimes imagined himself lying at the foot of that fence covered with blood, but it was not so atrocious. Whenever he imagined it, he thought of his body surrounded by his father, mother, grandmother, Haruko, and all the other people he knew well. They were staring at his body with different faces. Then he could not keep his presence of mind. When he recognized grandmother, he was roused with hostility toward her and would make up his mind never to lose his life. But those sweet faces of Haruko and his father drove him to feel happy at the thought of dying. How will mother react to my death? He said to himself, but could not get it as clearly as he did with the other people. Her face sometimes looked like Ohama's, though it was so obscure. When he thought of Ohama, he thought that he must not withdraw from this world. Her image would make him think of his days with her again. These days, however, Ohama's image made him feel sad and was also losing its color. On the other hand, Ryuichi would bring him back into a bright world. He often came to Jiro at school to talk with him, though he did not always know his sad feelings, nor did he have any intention to console him. Jiro associated Ryuichi with Haruko. Picturing that she would bandage him again, he was filled with happiness. The bandage became unnecessary in 10 days or so. On the last day, Haruko said to Jiro delightfully, "Now you can feel refreshed, Jiro-chan. It must have been so hot and damp. Please don't do such a foolish thing again." When his bandage was removed by her, he felt as if his only pleasure was taken away. He was so regretful. "Everybody is afraid of Jiro-chan at school," said Ryuichi to his sister. "I'm his best friend, so I can also swagger about." "How absurd you are," she said, holding in her laughter. Then she turned to Jiro and asked him with a serious look, "Do you like to be feared by other boys, Jiro-chan?" It was such an unexpected question that he hesitated and resented Ryuichi for slipping out such a silly thing. "You're wrong, Ryu-chan," he said. "Nobody's frightened of me." "No, I'm not wrong," retorted Ryuichi. "Remember, some boys were playing blind man's buff at school. They all fled when you went up to them, didn't they?" "Oh my, it's so bad, Jiro-chan," she said, looking down askance at him. He wished to make an excuse but did not know how to express himself. He was just wriggling on the stool when his shoulders were grasped at his back. It was Haruko. "Jiro-chan, my dear, please be a good boy, please," she said. Her cheeks were so close to his face that he could hardly breathe and felt dizzy as if he were taken in a swirl of soft light. Tears dropped to his knees, but he was not sure whether they were those of sadness or happiness. As she embraced Jiro at the back, Haruko said in a trembling voice. How sad Ohama will be if she is told about this. Jiro jumped up from the stool and clung to Haruko and said, I'm sorry, I was a bad boy. I'll be a good boy, I will. He was sobbing with his face against her bosom. So you understand me? She said, stroking his head gently. I'm glad to hear this, so glad, Jiro-chan. You're too bossy, Haruko, said Ryuichi, pouting his lips. You scold Jiro-chan. Oh yes, I'm sorry, she said. Let me bring you some goodies, so go upstairs and wait, right? Ryuichi took Jiro by the hand. He walked upstairs with him obediently, as if escorted by an elderly person, wiping his tears with the other hand. Jiro went to Ryuichi's house almost every day, even after his wound got well. In the meantime, he also came to call Ryuichi's sister Haruko. He had great difficulty in getting a chance to call her Haruko. It happened in the midst of a quarrel about something trivial among the three of them. All of a sudden, Ryuichi said, You can't do that, Haruko. Jiro also said so and flushed, but neither Haruko nor Ryuichi noticed it. That day he did call her Haruko a lot of times. It was after several days that Haruko noticed it. Oh, Jiro-chan, when did you come to call me by this name? She said, smiling. Chapter 26. The Bankruptcy. One day, Otami said to Shunsuke, Kyoichi has been studying hard for the middle school examination. Do you think we can afford to pay his school expenses when he passes it? I think I can work out some means for that, he said. It's impossible for him to walk to that school, said Otami. It's 10 miles away from here. We'll have to find him a boarding house or apply for the dormitory. Yes, we'll have to get him a room anyway. But I'm afraid we can't pay for that, she said. If we sold out our real estate, we'll get much less rent of rice, wouldn't we? We'd get nothing at all, dear, said Shunsuke. What do you mean? Said Otami in surprise. You aren't going to sell all the estate, are you? Yes, I am, he said. What can we do if we have a bit of land left to us? They're asking for it as a whole. Oh my, she exclaimed. We'll have no words to apologize to our ancestors. I feel the same way, said Shunsuke, but there's nothing to do about this other than sell all the property. But it's too much, said Otami. Let me go and see my parents. Don't be absurd, he said. I'll settle my own misconduct for myself. But we can't expect even the rice tribute from now on, said Otami. What are you going to do, dear? My monthly salary will pay for our food for some time. Your salary? She cried out. How many times have you handed it to me before? You shall have it from now on, he said. Don't worry. Then how much is it? She said. Don't you know how much your husband earns? How could I know? Said Otami angrily. However often I asked you, you always turned a deaf ear to me. And who said it was a matter of no importance? I see, he said. Anyway, we'll have to depend on my salary. Tell me now how much it is, said Otami. Probably it will pay for the rice at least. You might as well tell me more precisely, said Otami. I'll have to be prepared, you know. Don't be so worried, said Shunsuke. I'll hand you all my salary each month. You can think out how to get along on it, Otami. How discouraging. Can we raise the school fees for Kyoichi from your salary? She said with a troubled face. Probably not. answered Shunsuke. But if all our land is sold, we shall earn a little surplus money that will help us to survive for the time being. What will you do then? She asked. I'm thinking of going to the city and opening a small store. What? She exclaimed. What did you say? Why, you look so surprised, don't you? Ah, but how can I do such a business as to tend the store? Said Utami in despair. If my father is told of this, what will he think? Probably he'll think that it can't be helped. Oh no, she gasped. Please consider the future of our children. I'm telling you my idea simply because I'm concerned about their future. Such a mean idea as to keep a petty store, she said. Are you going to say that it won't benefit our children? Isn't it a matter of course? Said Utami. I've been educating my children so far in order to make them become a scholar or something like that in the future. The storekeeping will bring us some money, said Shunsuke. Then we can send our children to school, college or anything. Why don't you agree to my plan? A man can't be worthy anymore once he turns to a mean business, she said scornfully. I see, said Shunsuke. I know what you have in mind, but let me tell you this. Yours is an old-fashioned idea, Utami. You'd better throw it away right now. We'll have to be prepared to send our children even to serve under a shopkeeper if the worst comes to the worst. How you dishearten me, she said. Even if you graduate from a college, you may have to go under a master as an apprentice. What absurd nonsense! It's quite possible, said Shunsuke to her, but you don't seem to understand me, whatever I tell you. Utami turned aside and kept silent. Shunsuke went on. Don't be so angry. Please understand that we are in a serious situation. There's no other way for us. We must be prepared in any way we can. You don't seem to agree with me, but actually everything is going on along such a line. Forgive me, Utami dear. Do you really mean to leave this house and go to the city? Said Utami. Yes, I mean it, he said. To tell the truth, I've also agreed to sell this house. Oh no, she cried in despair. I didn't intend to sell a house, he said, but I'll need some money to open a store. Are you in your right mind? You haven't made a promise in a fit of despair, have you? Said Utami. I'm quite all right, not in the least desperate. Have you told your mother? No, I haven't, he said, but I know what answer she'll give to me. I feel scared, said Utami. So do I, he said, but if we linger on in this village, it won't do us any good. Their whispered conversation was made after the children went to bed in the next room, but it happened to be overheard by Jiro, who was not yet asleep. As he listened to his parents, he could get an obscure idea of their conversation. He had sometimes heard villagers gossiping about his father that he was a reckless person. They even whispered that the whole family might suffer a great deal after grandfather passed away. Jiro associated the villagers' gossip with his parents' conversation and came to understand to some extent. It was not so bad, he imagined, that his father would open a store in the city. Thinking of the stores in his village like the kitchenware store and the drug store, Jiro pictured himself as a boy sitting at the store. I can stay with my father all day, he said to himself, and was filled with great joy. Then the images of Yuichi and Haruko flashed across his mind. If he went to the city, he wouldn't have the chance to see them so often. Which would be better? Which would be better, to walk close by his father or to go to play at Luigi's house every day? Thinking of this and that, Jiro stayed awake for a long time, even after his parents went to sleep.